news of Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson's omission from the England Test match squad is news that is not fading. It's not going away, and Stuart Broad did nothing to stop the fanning of the flames with his Mail on Sunday column, in which he said that he wakes up every morning increasingly angry and still confused about his omission. And I have to say that the general feedback has been that he's got a very good point. Harmy, it's news that is not fading away, is it?
No, it was never going to as well, with Stuart having the newspaper columns. We've not heard from Jimmy yet, but I think by all accounts, Jimmy's even worse than Stuart. So, and they've got a good right to be. I think Jimmy is raging, he's climbing the walls. So, and they've got every right to be. The amount of professionalism they've done, the dedication, I'll say sacrifice, but then people will throw at me, yes, they've been well paid. Forget being well paid. They've tried to be the best professionals they possibly can be over the course of the last 15, 20 years. And that comes with sacrifice, but also the plaudits that they're getting with it. And he says every morning he wakes up and he's confused and he doesn't know what's going on. I wake up every morning thinking, how on earth have they come to this conclusion that the course of action should be, after winning one game in 14 Test matches, that you leave Broad and Anderson out? You don't even take them. Is baffling, and they've got every right to be. And I used this comparison the other day, and I wasn't sure if I was fair or not, but I'm going to use it again. When I look at during the last two Test matches, we had John Lewis, England's bowling coach, a member of England's management staff, come out and slag off one of the players for being not professional in Ollie Robinson. And then you don't take two professionals who are the ultimate professionals in standards, in the way they live their life and the way they play on the field. I don't know how they've come to this conclusion, because who makes that decision? Is it Strauss? Well, why is Strauss going to make that decision? He's got three test matches as interim director of cricket. Collingwood, he's got 3 test matches as interim coach. Taylor, who probably will still be in a job long term. Root, because he's England captain and he is staying long term. But the thing with Joe Root is he said at the end of Australia, he expects to see Broad and Anderson in the West Indies. So how they've come to this conclusion, I have got no idea whatsoever. The one thing I will say is the likes of Saqib Mahmood and Matt Fisher, who are going on the trip, I think would have benefited hugely by rubbing shoulders with the two greats of our game.
Well, thanks, Harmy. And on that note, we're joined, as promised in the introduction, live on the line by new Warwickshire assistant coach Jonathan Trott, and former England great, of course, batting at number 3. So anyway, Trotty, before we get on to your new job, and you, like everybody else, will have been caught blindsided, I suppose, by the omission of Broad and Anderson. And I guess you'll want to pick your words carefully, but your thoughts?
It does look strange when you look at any England squad, certainly nowadays a Test squad, and you don't see the likes of Anderson or Broad, and certainly at the top, they're normally A and B, they're at the top of the list. And so it does look very weird. It feels a little bit strange. And I think the selectors have made an interesting call. How it plays out, I'm very interested to see. I like all other England supporters or people who have played for England. And when you make such a big decision like that, you hope it pays off in whatever way they're looking for it to happen. Feelings wise, I think they played really well. They bowled well in Australia. They the two of them were up there with regards to ability wise, fitness wise. They certainly were, and so it does feel strange. And it'll be interesting to see the reasoning behind it. And I hope it's a clear and a very thought out process. But whenever those two, certainly I know personally and professionally, when those two are confronted with a challenge, they always rise to the top. So I think we'll see them back.
Do you expect to see them back? Do you expect them to see them come back and play, not just for Notts and Lancashire? Do you expect Broad and Anderson, as you know them, to come back and play for England?
Yes, absolutely. They will see this as a challenge. Their characters, throughout their careers, they would have been confronted with different challenges, fitness-wise, performance-wise, conditions-wise. And this will be another challenge for those two guys. You don't go and play 150 Test matches if you don't like a challenge, if you don't have the bit between your teeth or want to constantly prove people wrong. The way that those two guys have performed throughout their careers, they will see this as a challenge. And it's up to them whether they want to whether they want to go on, but I think they physically can go on, and I expect to see them back.
So putting your Warwickshire assistant coach's hat on, you don't want to see Broder Henderson playing for Lancashire and Notts at the start of the season, do you really?
I've had a look at the Notts and the Lancashire fixtures, so when we get closer to April, I'll be looking a lot closer and giving them a little call. Say, you're looking good. You don't need to play the next game. Don't worry, buddy. But you hope it doesn't. This isn't the end for them. They deserve. I'm not going to say you deserve better, because in the game of cricket, nobody's got a given right for anything. You always earn whatever you're given. But these two guys have been amazing for England, and it'd just be sad if they decided that it wasn't for them to carry on. I don't think it will be. I think we'll see them back performing well for England, and whenever they're ready to call it a day, they will.
Toddy, the reset of the England Test team, it has been said with good reason that the two things that didn't need resetting were Broad and Anderson and Joe Root batting at 4. One of the subjects that we wanted, Harmy and I wanted to delve into your brain about is the difference between batting 3 and 4. We always had the impression that Joe Root needed to be strongly persuaded the times he has batted 3 in the past. And we're told now by Andrew Strauss that he didn't just volunteer, he actively pursued a promotion up to number 3 in the batting order. And that's a position you occupied with great success for many years. What do you think motivated that change for Joe?
I think what it does is it allows, because he's obviously England's best player, it allows other people to come in and get used to playing international cricket at 4, 5 and 6. Whereas before, normally the top 3 would be inexperienced. We have a bit more experience at the top. I always felt that your best player generally batted at 4. Sometimes in the case of Ricky Ponting, he batted at 3 because they had the power like they did at 4, 5 and 6. Whereas Joe could literally choose where he wanted to bat because of the options and the constant changing of players. Interesting. Who's going to bat 4 now? That's the interesting thing for me. Who steps in his place? Sometimes you don't want to just put, fill a gap somewhere. There's got to be a reason behind it. I like the fact that he wants to do it. He's certainly good enough. And you always felt batting at 4 as captain, you give yourself a little bit of a break. You come off the field and you have a bit of a chance to freshen up or, take a bit of a break. But recently he's been in quicker than, you would have liked. So batting 3 or 4, I like the responsibility he's taken on. And I think he's well more than capable of exceeding, all expectations of what's needed for number 3. The thing for me is he's done so well at 4. And if he hadn't done as well as he had in the last year or so, the way that he's played, then I'd say, yeah, maybe a change. But I just, if it's not broke, there's no point of, fixing it. And I just think we need to find players who can bat it in the top 4 and have that constant, not that constant sort of changing of openers or 3 or 4.
Toddy, you would have seen the comments from your director of cricket, Paul Farbrace, a couple of weeks ago or maybe a month ago, fascinating, about coaching and methods of coaching and perhaps a lack of specific technical coaching at county level, at senior level.
Sure.
And perhaps it's become more inclusive and not quite... not quite firm enough, I suppose, when it comes to technique. What did you think of those comments at the time, and is there some truth in them?
I certainly agree that there's some truth in those. I think that nowadays, we play as the saying of all, that's the way that you play or that's the way that he plays. Sometimes I think it doesn't fit. I think sometimes as a coach, it's our responsibility to have conviction in what we think as a coach or from our experiences as a player and obviously as a coach now, and what we've seen and what we see and what we know that works. I think as a coach, you got to have belief in yourself and that, and not worry about finger pointing and things that go on, whether you help a player and you change things of it and whether that doesn't work or not. Sometimes we're a bit scared to because then you're accountable for things that you've now told a player, or maybe he could change. And if it doesn't work instantaneously, sometimes you have a finger, you're worried about fingers being pointed at you. So as a coach, you've got to put that to the back of your mind and believe what you're doing is for the player, is for their benefit or for the side's benefit. And I think as coaches, we can't shy away from that. You've got to be able to, especially from a younger age, teach the basics really well. The one thing for me, I would like to see younger players, obviously with introduction of white ball cricket and the lure of white ball and T20 franchises around the world. It's just helping young players set up their game to bat for long periods of time, and what's going to serve them well, doing the basics continuously, is what is needed, I think, and will, I think, in the long run, help players develop their white ball skills as well. I think at the moment we'd like to see this, just white ball focus and hitting sixes. I think nowadays we're seeing a lot of school cricket, a lot of T20 cricket being played at school. Kids are learning to try and hit a six before they can block out a maiden or bat for a period of time. So as a coach, you have different challenges now to say different generations. So that's the interesting thing for me as a coach and what I enjoy the most.
Toddy, have a fantastic season. Enjoy the pre-season. It must be great watching the guys flog themselves indoors rather than having to do it yourself.
Correct. There's nothing better than watching people warm up. It is the best feeling in the world when you get to stand and watch them warm up.
I agree to that. Oh, I love watching people warm up. It's brilliant.
That's the best thing ever.
The anguish on it.
You could go up to them and say, listen, I want you to raise your intensity and warm up, please. You're a bit lackadaisical here. Don't be like me.
Do as I say, not as I did.
Exactly. All right.